Apparently, I talked so much in my last video that I had to carry on all of that information to another one. But first, I need to take a few steps back and make a few corrections. You see, some of the events that happened did not exactly transpire in the same way that I had recounted them. You see, in 2005, Google actually purchased this tiny little company in Palo Alto, California called Android Incorporated. And then in 2007, when Apple finally released its iPhone, and then only 5 months later Google released their Android operating system and gave it out to all the phone companies. But do you remember hearing about it back then? I sure don't. It must have been a piece of... Everybody was all hyped up about this fancy new iPhone. A year and a half later they released the Android Market, which was basically a copycat version of the Apple App Store. And then, in July 2009, Apple rejected this application by Google called Google Voice. Now, Google Voice was this fancy little call management service that apparently could do all these fancy things with calls. The fact is that Apple rejected it. And then 2 months later is when Eric Schmidt stepped down from the board of directors at Apple. He says that it has nothing to do with Apple's rejecting their application, but you know, some people speculate that. And then the thing that really ticked off Apple was in January 2010, Google released the Nexus phone, their first actual physical hardware phone. Google releases Google Voice for their own phone. They say, we'll use it ourselves. And then today, on September 19th, Talk Like a Pirate Day, Apple decides that they're finally going to accept that Google Voice into their App Store. What a strange twist of events. I wonder what other relevant events will happen while I'm vlogging about them. Anyway, I'm starting to scare the cats and I don't really know what this thing is all about. Now, onto my phone. When I got the phone, of course, you know, whenever you buy a new phone, they take your old phone and take all of your contacts and pictures and everything off of your old phone and, well, copy it from your old phone and transfer it to your new phone. So they did that, of course, you know, like they normally do. And now my new phone had all my new contacts, plus it's connected to Facebook, so like all these contacts from Facebook that I didn't originally have before, and all of my text messages from my old phone are suddenly transferred to this phone. Speaking of that, this phone came with a little glitch, which actually turned out to be more of a practical joke than a glitch. When all my text messages from my old phone were transferred over to this phone saw the messages, but they're like, hey, we don't remember sending any of these messages out. Like, there's all these unsent messages in this phone all of a sudden. So the next morning at work, when I restarted my phone and I kind of reset everything, the phone took another look at all those unsent messages from my old phone and decided, hey, you know what, let's just send all these out right now. So it was about 7 in the morning when a whole bunch of my friends received a duplicate of some text that I'd probably sent them months ago. It was it was fun, because, you know, I'm already awake that early in the morning. Nobody else in their right mind is. Surprisingly enough, nobody was really angry. They just laughed about it. You were probably one of those people who received one of those messages, and I probably laughed at you. And then later on that day, one of my friends sent me a video that he took from his cell phone. That was actually the video that I played for you earlier. Go ahead and take another look at that video and see if you can figure out what's going on. What's actually going on in this video. Now, as we can see, there's some guys, you know, acting all James Bondy and stuff, and jumping down from some sort of wall. Now, the name of the file when he transferred it to my phone was El Muro. Now, any of you Americans out there recognize that wall, that muro right there? You probably don't. One of the few walls in America that Mexicans would recognize a lot more than the Americans living here. That's right, that is the wall. That is the wall at the border, and I got some awesome footage of it. And I know some people are going to complain and be like, hey, that's against the law, illegal aliens from outside country space, invading our country, taking our jobs, yada yada yada. But you know what? To you I would say, hey, you know, you were born here. You were pretty lucky. You didn't really have to work very hard. They had to climb this huge freaking wall, then run through miles and miles of desert. And you know what? This is actually the second time he's done this. He already knew what he was doing. To you guys, I say, these fine men who climbed El Muro and made it into the fine country of America, they deserve to be called true Americans. And I don't know what kind of accent this is, but it's definitely not a Mexican accent. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go play Super Nintendo games on my Android phone. Alright, he's almost calling me.